I'll just have a little snooze, then pop in and see how lunch is doing. Claudette nodded to Bessie, and the two sisters crept away, leaving Maisie to rest. Bessie lifted her daughter Jenny, perching her on one hip as the two sisters walked towards the house. "I still find it hard to believe we live here," she said, shading her eyes with one hand as they looked up at the 4-story house. "And we have a servant," Claudette giggled. "I'll never get used to that." "I don't think Mrs. Ince can be classed as a servant. She told me she prefers to be called a woman what does, as she does anything she's called upon to do. I think she's a marvel, and Mum loves having her about the place. Do you know, she offered to clean my rooms and do Jenny's ironing. Of course I refused, but for a moment I wavered. She's a diamond, as Nanny Ruby would say. I know I'm aware when she's working about the house and keep my own room clean. I'd be embarrassed to have her tidy up after me. And that is why we will always be working class and proud of it," Bessie laughed, as she opened the door to the ground floor rooms where she lived with Jenny. "Posh folk would have Mrs. Ince running after them and never even give a thank you. I reckon her next door would be like that. She's so stuck up. She caught me the other day as I was taking Jenny to the park and casually mentioned that she hasn't seen my husband about." "What a cheek!" Claudette fumed. "Whatever did you say to her?" I put on a sad face and said how he was lost to me. Bessie giggled. I'm pretty sure she thought my imaginary husband had passed away. Thank goodness I kept wearing this ring from Woolies. Even if it turns your finger green. Perhaps it's time you found someone to put a proper one on your finger." "Why, Claudette Carlyle, I'm surprised at you," Bessie said, half in jest. "I would never seek someone to marry just to be respectable, especially for nosy old biddies like her next door. I made a mistake, but look at what I have now," she said, gazing lovingly at her daughter, who was now sitting on a colourful rag rug, brushing her dolly's hair. "Perhaps one day you will find your Prince Charming," Claudette said, as she started to dance around the room, causing Jenny to giggle. "Not everything in life is like your pantomime, Cinders," Bessie said, referring to the role her sister had just been cast in for the Erith Amateur Dramatics Group's proposed Christmas extravaganza. She couldn't help thinking how well suited Claudette would be to the star part of Cinderella. She had started to slim down, losing her childhood puppy fat, and although Claudette would never agree, she was beginning to look like a beautiful young woman. "Here, look at this," Bessie said, as she peered from behind the blue floral curtains. Claudette hurried over and looked towards what her sister was pointing at. "Why, the nosy old—" Bessie nudged her before she finished her sentence. "Little ears," she whispered, looking past Claudette to where Jenny was oblivious to her mother and aunt and in a world of her own. "But they are spying on Mum," Claudette hissed, as they watched their neighbour, along with another woman, peering through a hedge that bordered their property. Maisie, who was still sunbathing with a sun hat over her face, was unaware she was being watched, let alone being talked about. Bessie frowned as she observed the woman. She was tempted to tap on the window to show them they had been noticed, but felt it wasn't enough. Putting her finger to her lips to stop her sister commenting, she crept from the room and went outside once more, to where a hose pipe lay close to the back of the house. Taking one end, she aimed it towards the woman and nodded to Claudette to turn on the tap. "Gosh, these plants look as though they are wilting. Let's give them a good soaking," she said loudly, as Claudette agreed. Maisie leapt to her feet, startled awake by the shrieks from the two elderly women as the jet of water hit them through the hedge, which they'd parted to gain a better view of their neighbour. "What the bloody hell!" she shouted, as she shook droplets of water from the short skirt of her sunsuit. She waved a finger at the women, not noticing their bedraggled appearance. "Are you responsible for this?" The woman Maisie recognised as her neighbour had turned red as her usually perfectly coiffed hair dripped around her face.